My name is Jack. I'm the editor-in-chief of Cracked. This is Daniel, the head of video at Cracked. And joining us, the hosts of one of my favorite podcasts, Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark of My Favorite Murder!
Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome,
guys.
you guys. A few of you have heard the show, it seems like, maybe. So since the last time we talked, you guys have become the biggest podcast ever in the history of anything.
Thanks to you guys.
Yeah, you made us, Jack. You made us.
I know, yeah. That's what I was getting at.
So you guys were on the podcast before, and after that, murders didn't stop.
It was our stated goal.
I thought that was the intention.
We did our best.
So I haven't talked to you guys in a year, so I wanted to catch you up on some of the murders that I've been dying to tell you about. And Dan has a hometown murder that he wants to talk about.
Good.
What a weird thing to applaud.
My favorite thing maybe ever on any podcast was the remix that guy made for you guys when it's Karen announcing John Wayne Gacy and the crowd just nuts.
They went insane.
That was so good.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah, so I expect to have a lot of really bizarre applause breaks.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys probably have the best fans on the planet. Like your podcast open
It's pretty
with
crazy.
they open with, look at these fine soaps that our fans have made us, all these gifts that you get. And I wake up every morning to just dog comments about how I need to stop tweeting about Gilmore Girls.
No creep. We had barely any creeps so far.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Creep factor's very low.
Yeah.
And if they are creeps, still they do a lot of needlepoint that's awesome. So we don't mind. It's like
Creepy needlepoint?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of like it.
That's like the Venn diagram. It's like creeps always with the needlepoint.
Yeah.
I could jump into some murders if you want.
Yeah. You want to talk some murders, Dan?
I'm not sure if you guys have covered this, but there was a fellow from Monmouth County, New Jersey. There's actually two from my home county of Monmouth County, New Jersey, that were serial killers roughly at the exact same time. And one of them, Richard Biegenwald, otherwise known as the Thrill Killer. He was a really strange case. It's one of those tragic cases where he had an abusive and an alcoholic father. So this is you see it as a kid who almost never had a chance because childhood was so rough for him. At 5, he tried to burn his house down. At 11, he set fire to himself and was just pushed around from this is a school for bad boys and this is another school for bad boys and we're trying everything. He did his first murder in Bayonne, New Jersey in 1958 and got life in prison, but was released in 17 years for good behavior. And then he murdered 8 more people.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And it's such a strange, it's very strange and bizarre to me because there's no rhyme or reason to it. Not that I want to understand,
theme?
I don't need a theme or anything like that, but it's not I like a theme to know who needs to look out, I guess. It's
Sure.
This person is targeting 19-year-olds who like Chuck E. Cheese, so don't be that. He was just, there was no rhyme or reason to it. He was just shooting people and burying and hiding their bodies, and it ran the spectrum of age and gender, and there was never sexual assault involved. It was just a guy who liked doing this and seemed to think he was good at it. And the reason he got caught is because he kept bringing people to his house and look at those bones. It's a person I killed.
Oh. That's a bad strategy.
Yeah.
I would say.
Do you find that usually doesn't work out well for
I wouldn't do it, is what I'm saying.
I feel so many of these guys, though, you see maybe a quarter of them that want to be caught. There was a guy in Michigan who turned himself in and was please please arrest me and make me stop doing this. I'm going to keep doing it. They don't want to do it, and they're just driven to. And then you think about that guy, and you're I don't know why he did it. And then you think about his day-to-day in those boys' homes where he probably got beaten by because in the 50s, they were beat the terrible out of him, and molest the terrible out of him.
He had electroshock therapy. I don't want to put an
Yeah.
immediate link between electroshock therapy and serial killers, but that was another one of the things when you're between the ages of 2 and 13 and you're getting beaten and abused by alcoholic parents and then electrocuted. It's all right, well maybe I'm going to murder someone and show their bones to my friend. I don't.
Right. But it's not even alcoholic parents. It's like parents. Like
Yes.
they were all like that. I feel like back then.
That's right.
Yeah,
It wasn't considered alcoholism back then. It was just like, oh, that's how they spend their evenings.
Yeah.
And also, it's very disturbing that he, at such a young age, had a fire problem, because fire, as we all know, usually indicates molestation of some kind, or some, it's.
We all know that? That's amazing. That is an amazing insight.
We all know it.
I missed
sorry.
that episode.
What is it like? Killing pets, wetting your
That's serial
bed,
killer right?
Yeah.
and fight like fires.
And arson. Yes.
Arson. There we go.
It's the trifecta that they may have disproven it now, because we're in an age where everything gets disproven constantly. But that was like the trifecta of, like, I think it's the argument that some serial killers can be made, that it's like if they had a different upbringing, it may not have happened this way. Which is especially because if that guy was just picking people off randomly, then it's that idea of like he wants to destroy and hurt in the same way he's been hurt.
Yeah.
I'm on his side.
And the other one also from Monmouth County, this person actually killed someone that went to the same high school as me. Robert Zarinsky lived 1940 to 2008 and started murdering people in like 1965. This guy did have a theme. This was 15 to 19-year-old women that he would murder and get rid of somewhere. There was a weird thing that I don't know if there's a precedent for this, but the murder of Rosemary Calandriello, that's probably wrong.
No, perfect pronunciation.
You just got to go for it.
In 1969, he was convicted of that murder. We've still never found a body at all. She just went missing, and eventually, he's come out and said, I buried her in Neptune. And he's also said, that was wrong. I threw her in the Atlantic Ocean. Dude. So we'll never find this body, but we definitely know that he murdered her. And he's a thing that my parents knew about. And just emailing, do you know anything about a Monmouth County serial killer? And they were just like, oh yeah, we were all pretty scared because my mom was like a high school student around this time. Just like, yeah, high school women in this area started disappearing. So we were all pretty freaked out by that.
What was he doing in that count? Like, did he live there? And he was just
He lived there, yeah. Monmouth County is a great place.
Clearly.
It's truly a tremendous place to raise kids. We got rid of the 2 serial killers, so don't even worry about that.
What's crazy to me about that is the clandestine grave situation is so out of control. The amount of places you can hide bodies, and then the amount of bodies that have been found and are not being linked up to missing persons. There's so many of them. It's so...
And seems so, for the families, so frustrating and so tragic that either there will never be a body or there will never be a killer.
Or there won't be prosecution. They won't be prosecuted because there's no body and you only get one chance to try them. And if you only have circumstantial evidence and you don't have a body that shows how they got murdered, you can't prove any DNA. You can't prove that the person you're prosecuting is the killer unless you have strong witnesses and all this other stuff.
I think you're going to go to the Supreme Court with this double jeopardy You really seem to have it out. Double Jeopardy. I love it.
I'm going to sit home on that one. I'd just be like, good luck, Georgia.
Thank you.
This is by no means am I trying to make this a theory that sticks, but these 2 serial killers in this area, born 1940, died 2008, both of them.
Well, that's, one of the first things we discovered when we started this podcast. There were 2, if not 3, freeway killers in Los Angeles in the 70s. When you start looking into stuff like this, oh, these are interesting cases, but then you start seeing this kind of this is a thing that happens a lot. It might be happening less now, hopefully, because of DNA and stuff, but it's especially back then, you uncover that stuff and it's oh yeah, there was several serial killers in action at one time.
And you hear about the famous ones, but you don't hear about the ones that are killing disenfranchised people because nobody gives a shit. So when you look into it and there's 3 freeway killers, and you didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked about the case of Jonathan Luna?
I don't know anyone's name.
No, probably not. We don't remember.
Oh yeah, that's right. So he's a 38-year-old father of two, assistant U.S. district attorney in Baltimore. Really successful family man, by all accounts, the height of his professional and personal powers. And on December 3rd, 2003, he left the courthouse where he worked at around 11:30. And the next morning, he was found drowned in a shallow creek with his court ID still around his neck in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which I just Google Mapsed that backstage, and that's like 80-something miles away, and they ruled it a suicide. He had been stabbed like 30-something times, often in the back, and
Sorry, what?
yeah, I don't know.
Who ruled it a suicide? Which child?
It was a puggle that was like, what's a suicide?
And like, the more you read about, like, the mortician was like, it was definitely not a suicide. It was like the worst murder I've ever seen. His hands were like shredded. Like he had like all these cuts all over his body. There was blood in the back seat of his car. So like.
And there was a guy back there being like,
So like all this weird stuff started coming out. Like he had dating profiles, even though he was supposedly this family man. And I know, right?
So he deserved it?
But so they know that he like left work on his own accord and then like started driving all over the place and like making ATM withdrawals. Like he was like zigzagging all over the tri-state area. They know where he like paid tolls, and he like paid in like multiple ways with like cash, then Easy Pass, then credit card. And even though he was stabbed 36 times with his own penknife, by the way, which is why apparently that's all the cops heard. They were just like, oh, yeah, it must have been a suicide. It was his penknife.
It was his.
Right, but his death was drowning, which is really weird because when you look at the stream he was in, it was like the smallest stream you've ever seen.
when you're unconscious, laying face down in a puddle because you've been stabbed 36 times, you're
Yeah, I guess I'll
drown
forgive
eventually.
him for that.
Is it cause of death or just the last thing that happened? Right. I mean, that's...
Right.
You got eaten by a coyote to death.
Yeah, really.
But like there's footage of him like leaving. He left his cell phone and his glasses, which he needed to drive, so it doesn't really make sense at all that he committed suicide, but it also doesn't make sense as a murder. There's a gas station attendant who saw him like filling up his tank like an hour before he supposedly got murdered by himself in his car, but like he wasn't like bipolar or schizophrenic.
You put
so.
$11 in when you're gonna kill yourself. You
Right.
don't fill up your gas.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Is also what are you drawing money out of your bank for if
Right.
you're gonna kill yourself?
And the money was all left in his car, just scattered around.
Make
Jack,
it
did you
rain.
bring this to us for us to solve here today?
It sounds to me like he got killed.
Well, we're done. Thank you.
Bye.
Have you guys talked about the Girl Scout murders?
Well, we haven't because there's so many.
We've talked to each other
Yes.
about it.
So in late April of 1977, someone broke into the counselor's tent at Camp Scott for Girl Scouts in Oklahoma and stole all the donuts from their donut box. I mean,
Whatever happens next is justified.
he replaced them with a creepy handwritten note which made an ominous promise. Soon 3 girls there would be murdered.
I didn't know this part.
Yeah.
Yay.
The counselors brought the note to the director of the camp, who dismissed it as a morbid joke. There's always like some dumb asshole along the line who's just like, you kids. 2 months later, a new camp was starting up, and there was a massive thunderstorm, and the new arrivals all huddled in their tents. There were like these tents all over the ground. One of the tents, the Kiowa unit, was a bit further from the counselor's tent than the others, and 3 8 to 10-year-old occupants were never seen alive again after they went inside of it. A counselor found one of the victims in the forest near the camp showers. The 2 others were found still in the tent. I won't go into the details, but they were all dead. Sorry. They found like a footprint that was like a size 9 shoe, and they said they had a fingerprint. And the cops immediately liked this guy, Gene Leroy Hart, because he had 3 names. And so they were like,
I don't need to hear anymore.
yeah. And it's always the middle name, like Leroy or Wayne or...
Lee is a bad one, too.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lee.
You don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
Lee.
That's my son's middle name.
I'm so sorry.
So this guy was actually on the run. Says he was at the house of a local medicine man. So I'm assuming he was a Native American fellow, and promptly acquitted for a number of reasons. It turns out his foot was a lot bigger than the tennis shoe they found on the scene, or the tennis shoe print, and he had already been pinned for 308-year sentences worth of other assorted crimes. And then 1 year after landing in jail, he died of a heart attack at 36. But he left behind a letter that said in no uncertain terms that he was innocent of the Girl Scout murders. And that's really... So the thing you guys should know about, when we write about murders, they never get solved. Usually
Right.
we write about like really weird mysteries. You guys usually have like a resolution to yours.
No, I read those late at night when you guys
Yeah.
post those and then can't sleep all
Right,
day.
the better version of the story is the Girl Scouts solved it themselves and took this guy down.
That's right.
They got
and
the
then
badge.
they exacted revenge.
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be the
Nancy
good
Drew
one.
style.
That one but really bums me out, and like
Yeah.
another reason I won't do ones like that is like there's nothing. There's no like it could be this guy or it could be this guy, and you're like it's clearly that. Like the couple who got shot with a shotgun on the beach in is it Northern California?
Yeah, I think it was in San
Like
Francisco.
there's nothing, and it's such a bummer.
Although
I
they do think, I think they linked it to Israel Keys, who was the guy that
Right.
went around and randomly killed people.
That was amazing.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
That story was so f***ing crazy.
The craziest part was I didn't get to the end. Like I basically got to
Ooh,
the.
do it now.
Well, essentially, the girl he killed. The reason he got caught was the last girl he killed. That murder, in and of itself, would be an episode, and I just didn't have time to tell that whole story. And what I wanted to do was just go through all of the things that he had done, because this is basically a guy. You guys probably know this already, but Israel Keys was a guy who lived in Alaska, and he basically traveled around the United States randomly killing people and preparing to randomly kill people by going places and burying kill kits in the forest so that they had money, they had masking tape, they had zip ties, all this stuff that so if he ever got pulled over by a cop when he was driving around, there would be nothing about him that would be suspicious. And then he would go into the forest, unbury his kill kits, and then hang out like by a trailhead. And sometimes he would do things like if there was a group of people hiking, he would just pull the last person away. So they would like truly just disappear. Because he was, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
he
like
was-
horror movie.
I believe that he got caught, like he did it through the 2000s, maybe 90s, 2000s, and he got caught, I'm gonna be wrong, but like from what I remember, like 2011, and killed himself like within a couple days of being caught. So they don't, from what he was telling them, there's possibly like hundreds of unsolved murders across the country he could be responsible for, and he only told them the ones that they knew for sure he did.
This is an insane thing for me to pull out, but my brain is broken, and I do things like this. But when I hear about a guy who lived in Alaska, buried a bunch of kill kits, and traveled all around the country murdering people for years, are kill kits free? What's his job? How is he affording any of this?
You're making that sweet money.
I
great-
don't understand. I'm still
really-
in student loan
Are
debt.
you planning this?
Eerily,
No, I'm
yeah.
just like
An eerily practical question for Dave.
I want to know how much what you do to get that disposable income for like different affairs for me.
I'll tell
Not
you.
murder.
And also, what knots do you tie them up with?
yeah.
I will tell you, and it's the red flag job, as we all know, contractor. Contractors, it's they basically have reason to travel, and they're kind of handy, and they make good money. They can make good money, and then just like kind of get out and leave and go somewhere else. That
Yeah,
seems
they
to
have
be
like
what he
months
did.
off of work.
Yeah,
because they make
it's kind of seasonal work, depending, and traveling is very standard.
So, Dan's a man, as you see, and
I'm a boy.
a little boy. Would you say that you have more Murderina fans or Murderino fans?
I want to couch this with.
I'm like doing the worst
this
job.
This is a question I've run by a lot of people because I don't know if it's sexist or not, and I'm really happy to learn that it is. And to qualify this with, I have no agenda or theory behind this. I have noticed in my own personal anecdotal flawed experience, more of my female friends are interested in serial killers and murder than my male friends, and I have no I'm not trying to trap anyone by yes, this stereotype that you've acknowledged in the world but have done no research in is true.
You can't trap anyone.
You can't trap anyone.
You can't trap us.
No. I wanted to know if you've noticed it in your own experience, but it's I first came to your podcast not from Dad over here because I don't listen to our podcast, but all of my close female friends were every single one of them recommended your podcast. And whenever I have someone who's a woman who's out of town and staying with me, they want to go to the Museum of Death, and I've got a lot of friends that I know who are strangers that was oh, Mickey, Elise, you guys can talk about serial killers because you're both interested in it, and it's not a thing I've observed with my male friends, and the body language is telling me this is a bad question.
No, we were just ready to answer it because there's so many theories. We have so many theories.
I could keep asking it for 30 minutes.
I just wanted a couple more qualifiers on it, just to make sure.
Well, I have never heard the term murderina until we were in the green room.
Oh.
Because it's are you female? I love these female comedians. It's not the same thing. It's not. They're just comedians. And murderinos are just murderinos. You don't have to be a murderina. Doesn't give a
Whatever, who cares? I don't care.
It's also I think I have this anxiety of being murdered all the time where I hate to be like this, but women have 50% more fear that's legitimate of being killed all the time than men do. And so we're more aware of it and we're more interested in it and we want to know more about it and we want to study it.
Very early on, young girls are trained to here's your survival guide because you're going to go out there and be polite, but everyone is monsters. So this is the way that here's the rule book on how to be a woman alone in public and all the things that you need to look out for, and that sort of spirals into you're just still staying educated on serial killers and how to spot and avoid them. I was born a straight white male, so my parents were there's the door, go outside, everything's yours, it's fine. And so
Enjoy.
I have that rule book for me because life is imperfect.
Maybe it's also the thing of just that there's a wide scope. It's almost like opening up a whole new range of the possibility of women, you know what I mean? Where it's you wouldn't think that. I remember when I very first checked out a book about Ted Bundy and got in trouble for it at my school and from my parents, and them saying a nice little girl shouldn't want to know about this, and the idea that it's okay, so it's fine if there's books about Frankenstein or vampires or something like that, that's all fine because it's fictional, but if I want to know about a real monster and how he pretended to have a broken arm so he would get someone to help him to lure them to his car, that's bad. The idea of that it just really rung as bullshit to me because it was just kind of so I can be scared in the way that will never happen or ever apply to me, but this actually could happen. I mean, I didn't realize that at age 12, but I mean, it was that overall feeling of people hide taboo things or inappropriate things in society. We just are oh, that's not nice to talk about. And I think we're just coming into a new age of you can actually kind of go, I am interested in it and not be a creep or a goth or something like that.
I do think it's because I was real into murder as a kid as well, and I think I remember my parents kind of making it clear to me that was creepy, and you don't want to be a creepy dude. So my theory heading in was the one you said, that guys don't really have the luxury to just ignore murder and be what's entertaining about that. But I think women in general tend to be more realists, and guys have the luxury to be more idealistic and just head in the clouds because we're not dodging murderers.
We can all picture ourselves being the girl who would help a dude with a broken arm because we're all that person.
Right.
And for some reason, we're not supposed to understand why we shouldn't do that. So we identify with the woman who was I'll okay, I'll help you. I don't want to be rude.
I don't
want to
be rude. Yeah.
And so, like we see that in ourselves when we read about it, and we see like this woman who was going to college to be a lawyer, and she met this terrible person, and it just like, I think it hits us a little harder because we can identify with her so much.
Yeah.
Totally.
The only lessons my parents had for me growing up was like, all right, go out in the world, don't murder anyone. And I'm like, good, no.
And have you?
But before I go, how much are kill kits?
I haven't, because kill kits, it's such a seller's market right now.
Let's get into numbers.
Thank you guys so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Please give it up
So
for Georgia and
having us.
Karen.
Thanks, you guys.
Daniel O'Brien. Thank you guys for coming out.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching whatever video that was. Make sure to like it with a button and subscribe to our channel. And normally I do like a bit or like a joke or something like here, but instead, watch out for all these marbles!